The Philippines are a region in Victoria 3 which hasn't received much love. However, with Iberian Twilight, do we have at least a little bit of content for them, which covers the transition from Spanish culture to either a Filipino native culture or to a Hispanophonic mestizo culture, depending on how you use the journals. This content is appreciated, of course. However, the Philippines still suffer from their inherent issue of being a bit light on resources, and on account of that, a playthrough as them is tough when pursuing the route of independence. In today's video, that was my goal. However, I just sort of went for it, relatively blind. I did play a brief Philippines playthrough in early access just to test them out a bit, but I didn't play them much at all. I just wanted to see what their journals were like, and I could not have expected how tough of a fight it would be for independence economically on account of that. With that, allow me to show you why gunning for an independent Philippines is pain in Victoria 3. So we can see that Spain finds itself dealing with the Carlist rebels at the beginning of the game, and this has pretty much no bearing on our lives over in the Philippines, but it's just something to note about the historical situation, I guess. In terms of what historical directions you can take the Philippines, I suppose historically you more or less just live under Spain's rule until the Americans take over your rulership. And that's not particularly interesting because it relies on the AI to do something which they probably will never do. So instead, I think we'll take the Philippines down a path of first loyalty to start, to get some immigrants, to get a good market, and then later we'll do some separation once we get nationalism, maybe start making our own identity. We start off with Spanish culture, but we will later acquire new cultures as we sort of understand Philippine identity more. Let's get started. Here in the Philippines, we start the game with an event immediately, which is a fruitful future, where we can focus on our ports, which gives some bonuses to our industrialist and petit bourgeoisie, or we can focus on our agricultural sector, which gives us plantation throughput. Now, plantation throughput is nice, but I don't really want to strengthen my landowners and rural folk. That being said, maybe we do want to start with this because it's only for the first 10 years, right? So the question we got to ask ourselves is, will we be trying to modernize in the first 10 years of the game, or are we just going to do plantation economy for the first 10 years? Well, let's take a look at the current setup of the market here. So if you look at our buildings, we have a lot of arable land. That's nice. We can do something with that. And then we have more down here. And in terms of resources, we have iron, wood, and coal. This is a nice state right here. And then in Mindanao, we also have a little bit more stuff. Okay. How about our laws? So in terms of interest groups, landowners completely dominate. We already have interventionism. We already have tenant farmers. So in this case, I think that we don't really need to modernize more. Like, we could go for something like laissez-faire, but it's fine. I think we are going to take this bonus to agriculture because we can use this to get this plantation throughput, potentially boost our power a little bit. Looking at our laws more, in terms of subjecthood, we have an amendment here, which is colonial racialization. This is the same one as what Cuba has, and it's actually pretty good if you ask me. This means that Europeans will be pretty well accepted in our country, despite us having subjecthood, but we get the bonuses of subjecthood, which is that people in their homelands get a lot of extra acceptance. So if we look at Luzon, look at the population, we can say that Tagalog people are mostly second-class citizens, as opposed to being like these lower-class ones. Presumably, the Tagalogs that live like down here are going to be the ones that are lower class. So yeah, you see here, this Tagalog guy, he doesn't have a homeland in here, so he's pretty low, whereas the Visayans are doing well here. We also have this cool culture, the Filipino mestizos, which are Insulindian heritage, but Hispanophone language. We're going to do more with these guys later, once we unlock the archipelagic, interesting, I don't know, I haven't seen that word before, archipelagic ethnogenesis. This will give us a journal about, embracing our Filipino identity, I guess you could say. We also have Perla del Mar de Oriente, which I haven't actually looked at before, so I think we'll figure this out once we, get started on it. The question, do we want to pursue that right away? Because to get both those journals, we just need nationalism. Regardless of whether we go nationalism quickly or not, I think we are going to want stock exchange, we're going to want banking, mass communication, empiricism, and then that gets us all the tier 1 society techs. After that, we'll decide if we want to pursue nationalism right away or go for something else first. Well, if you've been hearing a lot of little background noise, that was my cat running around and meowing and stuff and playing. I've now played with her to calm her down, so she should be a little bit quieter, although she is a very young cat. She likes to make lots of noise. Back to looking at the buildings. I think since we took that plantation bonus, we're going to want to start with some plantations, but the question is which ones. If we look at our companies, this is going to be an important part of deciding our build, is what companies we have access to. So there is the obvious, just basic plantation company, which gives us a bunch of different plantations, and prestige coffee. I've used prestige coffee in the past to make some very powerful plantation builds, but I don't really like the actual, what do you call it, the prosperity bonus. I don't really care for this very much. We do have a unique company, the Inchausti y Compañía. I'm sorry, I don't know how to read this this first word here. Assuming that this is to be read like Spanish, I guess it would just be Inchausti, like that. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, I guess. Now, Inchausti doesn't seem to be too bad of a company. It does have a nice supply chain with sugar, additional rice, and groceries, which means we can make a very nice grocery economy. And to be honest with you, not a terrible idea. We could go for a high-level grocery economy, but that's going to be more effective later in the game. So I think if we do this one, we're going to do it later, not going to do it right away. Definitely not going to do San Miguel, because Inchausti is kind of just better. It does come with at least a prestige good for groceries, which makes it kind of better for the grocery build. But I would much prefer having rice, sugar, and groceries in a supply chain. Beyond that, I don't think the Philippines actually have very many flavored companies. But I think it's basically just going to be us picking from the generic ones. In which case, I think that we are going to go the basic plantation one. This one, the coffee thing. Because this is just a really good plantation to start with. So to make this, we just need to get the ability to make new companies. So I think we will add that to our technology list here. We'll probably do corporate charters right after we finish all the tier 1 techs. Let's do our decrees real quick. I'm obviously going to do greener grass because more population sounds great. For now, I think I'll leave Mindanao out because we barely even control it, so there's not much point to getting migrants there. And we'll do agriculture industry, of course, road maintenance, of course, and I think we'll keep the rest of our authority for passing laws. Now, what laws do we want to change? We're going to want public health care later, once we unlock it. I'd like to do per capita taxation, although maybe it's nice to stay on the land base and then swap to proportional later, because it'll be easier to do. Beyond that, we could actually go to agrarianism if we intend to stay with the plantation economy build. It's a good idea. Looking at the company, I just want to check one thing. Does this use it does use partial aristocratic ownership. So keeping that in mind, using agrarianism could actually be kind of smart, and I think we will do it, because it'll make our aristocrats more efficient in their investments. It does also give slightly more government dividend efficiency, which is something, I guess, but not something I'm too interested in. Let's go ahead and pass it. Regardless, let's get building. Let's start making some coffee in preparation for our company. So I'm just going to drop like 20 coffee plantations. Just simple, you know? Nothing too complicated. Question is how we want to handle our taxes. We want to get migrants, but don't want to go too tax heavy. I want to put a tax on tobacco. I'm going to raise taxes by maybe like 1 step. And then do 3 construction sectors with wood construction. I think that's what we'll do for now. We'll go to iron a bit later once we have more money. And let's get to it. Let's unpause. I immediately paused again. That's really funny. No, I wanted to see if I could colonize Mindanao, but we can't.
So that was a long intro, and there's a purpose to that. I think sometimes people maybe want a little bit of guidance about how to think through the start of a Victoria 3 game, and I wanted to provide that. So yes, you just saw about 7 minutes of every thought process I go through before starting a game of Victoria 3. In this case, it could even have gone on longer had I considered diplomacy, but given I intend to stay loyal to Spain for the first couple decades of the run, I don't need to worry about any of that for now. I just want to say that normally when I play, I don't talk out loud, how I am in this video of course, but these thoughts are more or less exactly what are going through my head as I prepare to unpause. Maybe that'll help you to make smart opening moves in your game, or maybe not, whatever, let's resume the video.
Looking at advancements in the archipelago, by the way, I didn't even look at this earlier, but this is basically asking us to get SOL for the Filipinos up, to get our GDP up, get plantations built, urban centers, blah blah. So basically just develop your country a bit, and in return you get some nice little bonuses. So we will, not really think about this too much for now. We'll look at it a bit later. Now looking at our current income, I may have made too many construction sectors, that is a lot. But I think that as we make these coffee plantations, we can sort of even it out. Because right now, obviously, we don't have much of an economy, but give it some time, we'll fix it up. I think I do want to do violent treatment, don't I? Because I have slave trade, right? No, I have legacy slavery. In that case, it's not as good. Because we have, like, we actually have 0 slaves here. So, in that case, I really don't want to do violent treatment because it's going to make our laborers have horrible lives. It'll kill people. The big thing is it adds mortality. That's the big problem, is the mortality. And the slave import bonus won't apply because we have legacy slavery. I really don't like how much debt we're taking, so I am going to downsize some of our construction. It's a little too much. Let's go down to, like, honestly, maybe just 1. It's kind of painful, but it is what it is. This way we aren't just bleeding money. We could add another tax. Maybe to sugar and coffee. I like that. This should help us stay afloat, and we could even bump taxes more. This will hurt, but I think it's for the best so we don't just debt spiral. We'll see how it goes, though. If we end up having less than 8 average SOL, I might change it back. As agrarianism. This probably won't change very much, but it's nice to have. Now, in terms of actually getting more money out of this coffee, coffee in and of itself tends to do pretty well because it's consumed by pops. So if you look here, the Spanish market is going to be consuming a lot of coffee. That's going to be mostly from us, probably. But we could also try trading it, and that's going to require us to make trade centers. And I think it will be wise to give a trade charter to our coffee company, so that way they can own the trade that actually happens here, and they can own the land here, and it'll just be really profitable for them. We'll figure that out once we actually get the company, though. There's banking, and that puts us into a very slight positive balance. This would mean that we're not going to be generating more interest, which is good. I do want some colonial affairs. This would be good to have. The problem is that the rule folk are very strong right now, but I do want it. So let's click it, and then maybe we can negotiate with someone. Like the church, but they are quite opposed. Let's see what they want. Improve SOL or minus bureaucracy. We'll take the minus bureaucracy. It's not that big of a deal. Can we actually upgrade our... Yeah, we can do this. Filing cabinets, and that completely fixes the problem. It's a bit expensive. In fact, it's very expensive. But this is kind of way too expensive, to be honest. So I'm actually going to do this, and instead we'll just build maybe like a handful more of these instead of... We'll just do 2 more of these instead of building the better production method because it's way too expensive. Are we getting any immigrants? I'm curious. Let's see. Yeah, we're getting some immigrants from Spain, which is nice. Spanish pops are good to have. They're workers, you know. In fact, they're our primary culture, so having more is nice. Also, despite the max taxes, SOL is rising. I imagine because we're making more jobs, but I'm not actually sure. Are there any interesting agitators out there right now? Let's see. A positivist is always something, but it's on the intelligentsia, or rather the ilustrados, which we don't have much power for right now. I say that 17% is pretty high, but we can't make a government with them very reasonably, can we? What movement would he join? Actually, I'm curious now. I really want to see. What movement he create? He would start a modernization movement. We quite like that. So actually, we will invite you, Raphael. There's our modernization movement, and I think we will bolster that. Let's get rid of our sugar tax. It's not really paying us much. I say that now. Oh my god, never mind. It was paying us a lot. Hold on. Put that back on, maybe. Could do a fruit tax. Okay, if we do that, and then maybe we take off, like, this and this, so we can bolster the modernization movement, I'd really like that. This movement is really strong, because it lets us update our taxes, it lets us change a lot of things to be better. Got lots of coffee now, by the way. Lots and lots of coffee here. Unfortunately, it is being bought out by various great powers, but we still own the vast majority of it. And once we do have the company, we can put a monopoly on it, and then they won't be able to buy it anymore. So that'll be perfect. Also, our ruler stepped down. We now have Julio Allende Salazar. Big name. I don't know why that name feels weird to me. It feels like that's 2 names, Allende and Salazar. It's combined, I guess. He is a moderate of the armed forces, which is fine. Okay, so I don't like this bureaucracy deficit, so I'm going to actually swap the PM, then I'm going to destroy some of these. We don't need all of these. There we go. That's perfect. Now look at that income. That's very nice to see. And I'm pretty okay with destroying some of the bureaucracy, even though it means we have to rebuild it later, probably. Because for the short term, it's very, very good. Our coffee price is looking pretty good. I wonder what's buying all of it. Looks like it's just being traded away. And it's mostly being traded away in my capital. So those trade centers that are owned by France and Russia a little bit. It's like France, Russia, and some of Castile. They're making a lot of money selling off my coffee, which is not a big deal because ultimately I still benefit because my coffee price gets to go higher. That being said, I would prefer if I were making that money on the trade, but it's okay. So thinking about our future plans here, do we have any formables? We could form Iberia, that's funny. This could be a funny meme if we go and form Iberia, but I don't think we'll do that. Instead, I think we have to wait until we get the nationalism tech to see where our journal entries will take us. Because I'm not sure where to go with this. We could try to invade like China or something. We do have Insulindian heritage, or rather we will once we get the Filipino culture. So for now, there's no one around us that really makes sense to conquer based on their homelands, so we're not going to worry about that. But once we get Insulindian heritage, we might want to, for example, go after the Borneans. We want to go after like, you know, places in Indonesia. We'll have to see. Maybe we should conquer America. We could do like an inverse Filipino-American puppet, where we puppet the United States. It could be kind of funny. New Captain General. This is Sebastian Serrano. He's a modernizer. That's really good to see. He's also a military governor, which I don't really care too much for, but take it. So as a modernizer, we should be able to get, proportional taxation very easily. Look at how much the income would change, by the way, because we'd be taxing the dividends. So we really want egalitarianism after nationalism, I think. That would be crazy for us. 21,000 more pounds of income would let us build a lot of construction. I'm honestly surprised at our SOL with the current tax rate. I guess I could check some pops. Like, let's take a look at the workforce and the coffee. To be fair, their profits are quite good. So you see these laborers, they're probably just making a pretty good wage. Their wages 14.2k. Subjecthood reduces their wages a bit, which is unfortunate. But state religion helps. And I guess I was gonna say their stuff is cheap, but look, they're not even cheap goods. I don't know why the SOL is so high. I'm okay with it, to be clear, because it means more migrants. I don't have a problem with it, but it's just, I'm not understanding why. Which happens sometimes. I consider myself to be pretty knowledgeable in Victoria 3, but sometimes you just don't know why something's happening, and you have to live with it. It's very difficult to interpret all the different numbers. One big reason why, by the way, plantations can be so profitable in the early game is because when you do throughput on a building, this increases the cost of the inputs and the outputs, because you're increasing the input quantity and the output quantity. On a plantation, though, at least in the early production methods, there are no inputs. So we're just getting more coffee at no additional cost. It's very, very strong. Now these PMs are still better eventually, but right now you can see what costs a ton of profits. This is because, first of all, tools are very expensive, and second of all, coffee's not that expensive. But it would also be because suddenly the throughput would no longer be just free output bonus. It would instead be adding a cost as well as an output. There's our company. This is going to be huge. Let's make our company the United Luzon Plantation Producers. And let's give it monopoly rights to coffee, of course. We'll give it trade rights. And I'm not going to bother giving it tea plantations. We don't really plan to use tea much. I could give investment rights, and I guess we should, in case we end up building in Spain, because I believe Spain granted me investment rights. They did. This is new with the new patch, by the way. This lets you build in your overlord, and this is very important for getting independence eventually, because we're going to be able to get a higher economic independence number. So we'll focus on that eventually. For now, though, I'm okay just being loyal to Spain. Speaking of company, by the way, it's important that we rename this company. We've got to give it a new name. So let me go look at the list of channel members real quick and come up with a good name. Give me 1 sec. So in terms of how I decide which channel member to give companies to, by the way, I just look at the list, and then I sort it by the level. So the higher level you are, like kind of the first I see you. And then I scroll through and I just think, okay, when's the last time this person got a company? And then, that's how I do it. I also try to look at new members, of course, and I think, okay, if someone's new, they probably should get a company pretty soon. So how about this person, Gaeta Noribaldo 9152?
I checked this guy's channel out later just out of curiosity, and I realized it's not Gaeta Noribaldo, it's actually Gaetano Ribaldo. Sorry about that. It's hard to know where names begin and end sometimes in usernames, but I should have checked beforehand. Let's just go ahead and pretend I got the name right, and if you're seeing this Gaetano, my apologies about your name.
Gaeta in Spanish is like a cookie. Now, this plantation company does not make cookies, but they do make sugar and coffee. So we could do like cafe con galletas and then the name of the channel member, de Gaeta Noribaldo, and we'll do it like it's two names, like that. So it's like the coffee and cookies, Gaeta Noribaldo's coffee and cookies, something like that, right? Pretty sure this is good Spanish, but my Spanish is not always amazing, so correct me if it's wrong. It's run by this guy, an abolitionist of the Catholic Church, which is fine. Since we have legacy slavery, and we have what looks to be like no slaves, I don't really get what the point of having legacy slavery if you have no slaves is. So yeah, we actually have 0 slaves in the whole country. If we look at society by class, statuses, yeah, are there any slaves in the country? Not a single slave in the country, so legacy slavery means that we just will never have slaves, which is fine. Slaves are bad anyway. Now that we've got that bit of a plantation economy going, I want to start working on my construction loop, because as you can see now, we have a pretty okay income.
The reason why construction becomes a priority now is that with the company, we begin generating a lot of investment pool, but there's not much point to that without more construction for the private queue to use. The issue is that we can't afford more construction as we split the construction with our private queue and the government queue. One thing you can do to fix that issue is to pause your construction to pay off your debt, and while your construction is paused, the private queue will take the rest of the construction sectors. This works quite well, but is very micro-intensive, so despite handing out that advice, I very rarely ever follow it. Nonetheless, it might be good for you to know that if your investment pool is piling up and you've got some debt, try pausing construction and letting the private queue drain the investment pool for a little while as you build up some cash reserves or pay off some debt.
We have over 200,000 Spaniards here now, by the way, just from migration from Spain, presumably. Nice to see. Are we still #1 coffee producer? I think so, right? Yep, we're still ahead of Brazil by quite a lot, in fact. Here comes nationalism. This will unlock most of our Philippine content. So I'm excited for that. We can look over what that does. We're also getting egalitarianism around the same time because of tech spread, which is really cool. I think after this we'll go for pharmaceuticals and quinine. That'll be for healthcare, of course. And here's Philippine identity. Okay. So, we have two options. We can either get fervor for Filipino mestizo and fervor for the local Filipino people, and we get liberty desire, or we can sort of like stay loyal and lose liberty desire. Well, I think we do want to eventually get our independence, but let's see what the journals want us to do. So, in order to complete this journal, which would give us Filipino culture, okay, we need to have Filipino mestizo as primary culture, not be a subject, high literacy rate, have high acceptance. Okay. If we fail, we still get Filipino, but with an F instead of... It's so funny. In this one, we take Filipino, which is like the, they're speaking like Filipino. They're speaking the proper like native language here. Or we can fail it, and then we actually become Filipino, which is Hispanic speaking, I assume. Yes. Interesting. So the only difference is basically whether or not Spain is our overlord. That's the only difference between these. We can decide if we want to stay loyal or not. Okay, we'll think about that. How about Perla del Mar de Oriente? This one we have to not a subject, and that gives us Filipino mestizo. So we have to do this first, then we do the second one. So we get Filipino mestizo if we get our independence, or we can fail it, in which case we get Filipino mestizo. So either way, either outcome works for us. Okay, do we stay loyal? Do we not stay loyal? I think an independent Philippines is kind of nice. Yeah, I say we go for that. Let's go for the independence option. Philippine identity. Let's grab the gaining independence is crucial. Here's egalitarianism. Now this is big because now I can go in here. I can go and tax proportional taxation. That's going to give us 30,000 more pounds to work with. And that's going to be quite good. Let's enact that. And can we maybe get like a better government for this? Yes, I know that the rural folk want this, so this should help us a lot. There we go. That's a good chance to pass. With proportional taxation, we can start supercharging the economy for sure. Speaking of which, let's get more construction right now. Let's build it maybe in Visayas so that we can have like a little more infrastructure back home. We'll build 10 there. Let's go hard. And I want to do some... I just realized we didn't incorporate this, did we? That's really funny. We don't have the bureaucracy for it yet, though. Let's wait. There's hydraulic cranes, so we can set bulk trading on our trade center. Let's do that. Might actually ruin their profitability. Yes, it will, but that's fine because we don't own any of this stuff. This is all foreign owned. So the lack of profits mean nothing to me. Although they did just rebalance. That's usually what happens is they just rebalance the trades. But yeah, we don't care if this affects profitability because it's not owned by me. None of this dividends goes to me anyway. Here it comes. Hopefully we get it here. There it is. Forced taxation. So it looks like the number lied a little bit. We didn't quite get 30 grand out of it, but we got a lot. Very happy to see that. It looks like once our investment pool takes over some of the construction, then we have a positive budget. So I'm just going to hope that our investment pool will eventually catch up with our current excess of construction. It's okay to take on a little bit of debt for now. We just don't want to take on too much. But I think that this current amount is acceptable. I'm gonna see if I can get a governor. Could I get the influential planter for the plantation throughput? That'd be kind of nice. We could also get the experienced extractor, but this is going to cause mortality. Prominent businessman is good for the minus interest rate and the construction efficiency, so I'm actually going to take prominent businessman. Even the influential planter would be nice, because the plantation throughput is good. I think I'd rather have the interest rate down for now. Now we have, this is Ricardo Acedo. Also a modernizer. Again, good to see. Modernizer is great. Oh, Heavenly Kingdom's here. Hopefully they win. That'd be big, because then they'll be able to mass migrate out. Looks like they will win. There it is. Big Heavenly Kingdom victory. Also, whatever this journal is we just finished. So the reason why this matters, by the way, in case you're curious, is because if you go to their domestic laws, they have no immigration controls, whereas Qing has closed borders. So because of this, if we ever get multiculturalism, then they'll be able to mass migrate out of China into our country. That's why that matters a lot. If we really want to get independence, by the way is to just start making an army. That would be the best way to. So I could click this button to make colonizing Mindanao a little bit faster. But to be frank with you, I don't really want to pay money to gain mortality and colony growth speed when we're already basically done colonizing. I assume that this would be like more useful if you got started late on it, but we passed the colony law pretty early on and got this done rather quickly. So there's not really much point to clicking this button anymore. Indian Modernist Revolt looks like it's doing okay. I suspect, though, that once the British army arrives, they won't be doing so okay. Because usually what happens is that revolts in India do well, then the British army gets there, and then they get destroyed. Because the Britain takes a while to arrive in India. So, unless, I mean, well, they have the capital, so they might be taking them down. Oh, yeah, wow, actually, they're really close. But of course, Britain has to be the one to capitulate, and they're not looking like they're anywhere close. So, it could be that it looks like India is about to break free, but they won't. To be fair, new patch, new balance, who knows if things are different now. Could be that it will actually break free. In which case, that's good for me, probably. I don't imagine that it would possibly harm me for India to go free. Could be a place to expand in later on. There's joint stock companies for another company, but I don't know what we want to make. I guess, funnily enough, the lumber company is actually good, because tools and lumber is nice, plus infrastructure from the prosperity bonus. Yeah, okay, we'll make it. We don't have the authority for this, but that's alright. Just the lumber alone is worth it. We have Gaspar Torralba, which is a modernizer rural folk dude, Spanish. Nice. And we gotta come up with a name for this thing. So let's look at the list of members once again. So we're gonna cop out on this one. We're just gonna do Elysia Tatsu Logging, because I can't think of a good way to combine the name with something that fits. So, Elysia Tatsu Logging. There you go. That's what you get. Oh, it looks like East India is free. They're probably gonna collapse. There they are. Yep, right on time. So they did form a power block before they collapsed, though, which is always funny. So they have a military treaty. Maybe they'll aggressively expand and conquer all of India back. Good luck with that. Will they remain a great power? Looks like they will. Okay, good for them. How's our GDP, by the way? We're number 16 in the world, which is okay. Fortunately, we are getting bought out a bit by great powers. We are at least now working getting reserve coffee, finally. Glad to see that. Took this thing forever to grow, and we can't do like subventions or anything to make it go faster. Oh well, though. Getting the SOL up is going to require us to probably drop taxes, and that's going to suck. Because right now we're kind of like creeping on the edge of bankruptcy with this much taxes. And I say that, we don't have much debt right now, but if we continue at this rate without significant growth, we will go bankrupt one day. It just might take a long time. Could implement some kind of voting law. I do like the idea of wealth voting. Let's grab that. Oligarchy is pretty good, but I do like wealth voting. Here comes our reserve coffee, by the way. Just a couple more months. This will be a lot. I think this will help us quite a bit, because it's going to make our trade really good. Most of our coffee here is owned by the company at this point. And it'll make the trade center have a lot more trade advantage on the exports, which is most of what we're doing. A lot of what we're doing here is exporting coffee. It'll also help with our standard of living, because pops that consume prestige goods they get more SOL from it. Yeah, most of the early game of the Philippines seems to be just kind of building up, which a lot of countries are like that. This is part of why I tend to not really like to do really minor powers, because a lot of your early game is just like building stuff, and I don't tend to really care for that gameplay too much. I mean, I care a bit, but not that much. How's my GDP? So number 12 is pretty good. We're about half the GDP of Spain, a little bit more than half the GDP of Spain. We have only a bit less than Prussia, and Prussia looks like they did get neutered a little bit, so like they could have been more. Well, actually, this is smaller than usual Prussia, right? Normally they haven't lost. I don't actually remember what they look like normally. Maybe this is normal sized Prussia. Our investment pool is draining, so it looks like we aren't making enough profits. In terms of just making like profitable buildings, it's probably going to be coffee, so I think we're just maybe spam down like 40 coffee plantations here. I hope that our company buys it up, and we're going to need more railways for that, so... Britain is reconquering India after losing it. That's cute. Very cute. How's the war against America going? It looks like America does not have much of a navy. Yeah, so this is really funny to watch, because the Americans are now spending... I don't even want to guess how much, but tens of thousands of pounds on running this 300-man army, or 300 regiment army, rather. And they only have 23 ships. So to be clear, you can only invade without taking a penalty with a number of troops equal to the number of ships or less. So they could use at most 23 of these 368 regiments to try and invade Portugal. And like maybe they could get away with that actually. I think Spain has more men. They have them in Cuba. They're probably trying to protect Cuba or something. But the point is that America's wasting a lot of money. Also wealth voting. Cool. This should let us potentially get the industrialists in power. So we have three parties. We have the conservatives, the progressives, and the radicals. A nihilist is definitely interesting. That's something. Dude, state atheist Philippines would be kind of crazy. Let's see what we end up doing. I don't want the conservatives to win. I'd much prefer, like, literally anyone else. Like, right, I think the liberals, as in the progressives, are probably my favorite pick right now because of industrialists. Let's see what we end up getting. Also, we should be researching tech. We got the percussion cap now. So at this point, honestly, like, I guess we can just do rifling, triage, shell gun just to complete the tier 2s. Then get me ironclads and monitors. That'd be nice. Plus gantry cranes. Even if the radicals win, just having this much clout on the progressives will help a lot. Happy to see this outcome, even if it isn't quite what I want. The radicals, I don't really want that much, but there's something. We could go for universal suffrage after them, but that probably wouldn't be good for us. There we go. New government. What do we got? We cannot form a legitimate government. That's kind of sad. How? I don't... Can I maybe get a new governor? Hold on, let's see if we can ask for a new governor. That might be better. Because one thing that's holding us back is that as a colonial administration, we get quite a bit of legitimacy from head of state and government. Maybe we just need to ask Spain for a new head of state. So Mr. Vela is landowner. Gonzalez is landowner. Mandiola is an industrialist. That's who we want. Sanjurjo is a petit bourgeoisie. And Uduri is armed forces. So despite me not really caring for, well, experience distractor is not too bad, but I don't really want it that bad. I do want this guy for the fact that he's industrialist. That will let us put in charge a much better government, I think. Or not. Or not. Yeah, or no. Or it doesn't work. Okay. Well, why? Why is this so bad? Ideological incompatibility. What do we have to get rid of in here? It's probably just the trade unions dragging us down here. This really sucks having like no legitimacy, because it's going to create a bunch of radicals for no reason. I see, it's literally because of the trade unions. Well, I guess it's more because of the industrialists, actually.
This is one of those unfortunate situations where my parties have formed coalitions which just don't get along. A party composed of the industrialists and the intelligentsia, that can work. A party of the workers and the intelligentsia, that can also work. All three though, that's very ideologically incompatible. That begs the question of why the other parties can't make a legitimate government, and that's likely because they also don't get very many votes, nor do they agree with each other. Meanwhile, the nihilist petite bourgeoisie and radical farmers who did win the election don't get along because they tend to disagree about a lot of things aside from their desire for a republic. Combine that with our very high taxes, legitimacy is a tough resource to come by. Personally, I don't know why these interest groups even made parties considering how little they have in common, but I guess the party system right now is a little bit weird. I remember this kind of thing happening here and there in older patches, but having it be this bad is pretty bad.
Right, I should increase this. This might actually help us complete our journal entry if we can get some standard living from health. That'd be good. We'll see if it does. I mean, getting 20 on that particular culture is going to be tough because they have pops across all the stratas, right? It's not like they're only capitalists or anything like that. Although, funnily enough, they have 17 already, so I guess we're not too far off. We should probably check what the lowest SOL guys are having trouble with and try to improve their standard living. Looks like it's late. We have 1,000 peasants, so that's too small to matter. The biggest cohort, then, is the laborers, so maybe we should look at them. Laborers in Luzon working on tobacco plantations. We're not abusing them, are we? Let's see. We are not. That's good. Let's see what they consume. We could try to maybe reduce the cost of whatever they consume. They're spending a lot on fruit. Okay, we can make some more fruit. Although we already have, like, a ton of fruit here. But I guess we can always make more. In fact, do any Filipino mestizos work in here? Yeah, they do. Okay, like 5,000 of them do. I was gonna say, what if... I wonder if it's worth the trade if we just go like violent treatment on the fruit. Now, I don't like this, because it's going to make a lot of money for these people who are not me. But I could nationalize a bunch of this. And I think that's a good idea. So, get nationalized, low bro. Yeah, that way those profits go to me instead of to foreigners. You know, I would like this journal entry in terms of like getting a particular culture's SOL up, if it were possible to particularly target groups and give them or take away from them their SOL. Like, I don't really have any levers to pull to help this group gain SOL. I basically have to increase my entire country's SOL if I want to get these guys to be at 20. So it's kind of like, you know, I see what you're going for, but you're not. It's not really working how I think you're trying to make it work. That's sort of the big problem I have. I think building more coffee will help with the SOL issue, because those Filipino mestizos do in fact have an obsession with coffee. So we'll subsidize this to make sure it employs up and then make some coffee. We almost have enough desire to ask to become a Dominion, by the way. Cool. I want to improve relations so that Spain might be willing to just give me Dominion status. I want to see if I can ask them for things they'll say no to. Oh, this is good. If we can actually get this legitimacy, I'd be really happy. This still doesn't let us be legitimate, although we can at least have a conservative government for legitimacy, I guess, at this point. Which I think I kind of need to do. I don't want to be stuck with all these radicals. Now, unstable government still makes radicals, but just not nearly as many. Okay, so we can rig an election here, and I think I do. Well, actually, progressives are winning pretty hard, so actually I don't think we need to. Because we could click this, try to get progress towards removing electoral clientelism, which I don't believe we even have. No, we do. Okay, we do have it. But at the same time, I would kind of like to really ensure a strong victory for the progressives. So I think I'm just going to click this anyway, which is going to make like a huge boost in them. 90% votes for them. Yes, that sounds good. I want to have like a strong government, you know? I do really like the mechanics around manipulating elections, by the way. It's very, very good if you ask me. It's something which, like, gives character to the game, and also, again, reduces RNG mechanics. I talked about it in my review, but like the more things you can turn from RNG into actual mechanics, I think is always a positive. Very good. Now, if we reform, 51 legitimacy. Hell yeah, dude. So with this, we could go for technocracy. We don't have central archives, though. That's funny. I guess instead we could go for like state atheism or total separation. Free trade, which I don't really want that. Child labor laws would be good. Taking off migration controls is pretty nice. I do want that, actually. We can negotiate, but with it... This is going to be difficult to pass, but if we can pass it, I would like it. Oh my god, France wants to take over. Well, hopefully Spain doesn't lose, because otherwise we're about to get taken over by France, which is really funny. If we get taken over, that kind of breaks some of our journal entries. So, I'm looking forward to that. Also, we're going to lower taxes 1 step. In fact, how about 2 steps? Let's lower it 2 steps. This might be able to push us over into completing advancements in the archipelago. Give it a bit. It'll take a little while for this to apply, but see if it works out. No, we're just losing SOL. Why is that? This must be because the market's being affected by the war. Like, is Spain getting occupied? What, dude? It's dropping so fast. What? Are the convoys being raided? Maybe? Are we losing market access? I don't. How is it dropping this much from lowering taxes? What are you? What is this? We're down to 11.8. Can we put? Is taxes good now? No, tax is bad. Tax is bad. Drop the taxes completely. What is this? What do I do? What's happening? Okay, it's stabilizing at like, okay, it's going back up now. I just like, that was insane. We just went from like 14 to nothing. It must be because of the war, but I can't think of how. Oh, because we're not building anything. That must be it. Everything's losing its profitability or something. Maybe because we're not. Maybe that's why. I don't know, dude. I'm just confused now.
On further reflection, I've come to the conclusion that something is wrong here. Usually when something weird happens and I don't get it at the time, I think a bit more about it and then I end up understanding it, or at least getting an idea of what it could be. In this case, I can't think of any reason why lowering taxes would cause such an immense drop in SOL. We're not talking about some kind of weird fluctuation, we're talking about an average loss of about 3 points. My logical mind jumped to the idea that by lowering taxes, the capitalists might have dropped wages to create more profits for themselves, understanding that less of their income would go to government taxes and therefore it would be more worthwhile to pay themselves instead of their workers, but that logic doesn't actually exist in Victoria 3. See, that's how a CEO might work in real life in a nation with corporate taxes. They'd see high corporate taxes, or as they're called in Victoria 3, dividend taxes, as a reason to use their money on things other than dividends, like paying workers to compete on the market, meaning that lower taxes could potentially depress wages. See Reaganomics. But again, Victoria 3 doesn't simulate anything nearly that nuanced or complex, especially given I can't lower the corporate tax, I can only lower all taxes across the board. So even if the industrialists were suddenly paying out lower wages, wouldn't my lower income taxes balance out with it? Yeah, something weird went on here, and I don't have the answer. Any guesses, leave it in the comments and I'll mull it over.
I think once this current construction queue finishes, we're going to start making our army and our navy. Let's create a fleet. Let's do our frigates. Do like 20 and 20. We'll start with Man of Wars and upgrade it later. Cool. And then for the army, we do have our ammunition. The problem is that we don't have a local source of lead, so we're gonna have to trade for lead, which is bothersome, but it's okay. And let's make some infantry. It's gonna be expensive, but this will let us get our independence because we'll start to be more powerful than Spain, or at least powerful enough that we're not so less than powerful than them that they can just keep us down forever. Unfortunately, Spain does seem to have an alliance with Austria and a defensive pact with Britain, which means it'll be very difficult to break free, but I suspect eventually there may be ways to get out. Also, we had a tsunami, and that's not good. Tsunami is going to hurt our states a lot. And the war ended, by the way, but who cares? The war is over, so I'm hoping this might see our SOL go back to where it was before, so we can try to complete this advancement in the Archipelago Journal. But it looks like it's just not recovering. So I couldn't tell you what happened there. See, like now the Filipino missile is down to 13.1. Like, bro, we were so close before. We were at like 18. Now it's all gone. You know what would be interesting? Would be if when you had Spanish pops and Tagalog or Ilocano or Visayan pops in one location, like in one state, if they slowly merged into being Filipino mestizos. Because right now, the Filipino mestizo culture is actually tiny, even though it should in theory really be growing, because we have Spanish and like Filipino people just like hanging out, right? You think that would result in some mestizos, but because of how Victoria 3 works, instead these guys have an individual birth rate. And in fact, it's I think they're assimilating into being Spanish. That's really funny that they're just Spanishifying. That's hilarious. But point is, they probably should have a system where Spanish plus Filipino pops create mestizos. And you could do a similar thing maybe if you have other Hispanophones with like Nahua, and you could do mestizos here as well. But in this case, they just have Mexicans. It's fine. My economic dependence is completely independent. That's really funny. I own 17% of Spanish GDP, and I have not too much less GDP than them. Alright, new election. Let's put the industrialist in. Very strong industrialists. So because they are, because they're positivists, they do want, like, some laws. Can't do state atheism. Well, I guess actually we can. That's kind of funny if we do that. Kind of like this idea, just for the, just to get rid of that Catholic Church power. Let's do this, because I don't really like how strong the church is anyway. This does mean we're going to have religious schools plus state atheism, which, you know, you figure out how that works. I'm going to leave that to you. Taiping Modernist Revolt. That's very interesting, because that's going to actually make the Heavenly Kingdom really, really strong. Because they're going to go from, like, shitty traditionalism to interventionism, and they're going to get prop tax. Sorry about that noise, by the way. That's just, when you click on someone having a rebellion, it's really annoying. That's going to be crazy. They're even going to go protectionism, so the Chinese market's going to be open. That's a bit insane. Yeah, they did it. There they are. The new ruler. Lima. So now trade with China is open. At least they have protectionism, so they do need to, they charge tariffs, but still. The problem is the independence is going to suck. I'm just going to tell you that now. No sulfur, no lead. We're going to have to import all that stuff. Probably going to have to put subventions on it for it to even be profitable. So it's going to be painful. But that's alright. We are paying 15k to Spain as a colony, so once we're independent, we'll lose that expense. But I think that right now we are benefiting more by being with Spain than we are from not being with Spain. How's SOL these guys looking now? 14.7. It's recovering a little bit. Now that we have this army, we should get a little more free desire. Although Spain is very powerful. They're number 2 great power currently, and they're in their own power block. That's a big army, dude. Spain tends to do quite well in this patch. I'm not sure, like, I think they rebalanced its army size or something. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but Spain tends to actually have quite high prestige nowadays. There's state atheism. That's fun. And then let's go to becoming a republic, I guess. I'd like to do presidential to keep the authority. How's our Liberty Desire looking? Now we're sort of evening out here because our army is getting to be powerful enough that Spain has to contend with us, and now it's powerful enough. There we go, because our prestige is higher. Perfect. So we can at least become a dominion, and when we become a dominion, we can start declaring wars, and we can go and conquer Brunei, so we can get the sulfur that we need. Now, in terms of lead, where is there? There's lead here. Pontianak. But this is all part of the Dutch East Indies. I think I can handle the Dutch East Indies though, right? Maybe. I don't know. That might be assuming a lot. I'm gonna not build anything for a bit and just let the private queue kind of like drain this investment pool for a little while I build up some cash reserves. Before that though, I am going to swap over to the new production method to try and get our bureaucracy up. That's nice. So I guess if I want to get better standard of living, the way to that would be to start increasing literacy and to use labor-saving production methods. So although I thought we could reach our mythical 20 average for the mestizos pretty easily, I think we're going to have to do some like actual solid gameplay here. Let me get my bureaucracy and then I can increase my education. That'll make it so that we can get better jobs. Then we can set our labor-saving PMs.
Labor-saving production methods reduce how many laborer jobs are available, and in so doing, open up our pops to go work in better jobs like machining and engineering. Normally, I don't bother to do this until we hit an actual wall in employment, as in we literally can't employ up our businesses, but in this case, since I'm trying to SOL max, it may be wise to begin eliminating poorly paying jobs right away and focus on making more engineers. Nonetheless, other things in the game will transpire before I really get around to that.
The unfortunate thing is you don't have a ton of coal here. See, this is the problem, is that we just don't have like a lot of resources to work with. This is why we're so dependent, it feels like, on Spain, is we don't have much to work with back home. With 5 coal mines, we can't really affect the price of coal very well. But gotta do this. Gotta start, making better jobs, I guess. I suppose rather than doing that, then we should probably focus on what we do have the resources for, and that's gonna be groceries. But I think actually we're going to do like a big grocery dump here. Now this says it'll be very unprofitable, but keep in mind that when we overproduce groceries, that reduces the price on them. And as a result, people can then buy more, and then that creates SOL, and that results in them being able to buy even more. So it should work out. Fortunately, we have a massive throughput negative here. What is this? Diminished rum production. Why? 15 months of that. Okay, well, it'll go away eventually, I guess. We do now at least have human rights. We can use that to get us more education. Let's go and pass that law after we... I don't want to pass Republic. What am I saying? After we pass this, get out of here. Let's just go and pass this. So the question is, would we possibly be able to win this war, despite having not that much of an army, by just the fact that we can perhaps, like, defend our coastline? I get the feeling that, like, no, that will not be the case. It's gonna hurt so bad to get independence. It's gonna hurt so bad. Now, I will say, it's gonna hurt me to leave Spain's market. It's also gonna hurt Spain for me to leave because I have a lot of stuff going here too. But I think it will end up hurting me more. I'm not sure about that. It feels like it will hurt me more. Here's what the game believes our economic dependence is. We are completely independent, but this is absolutely not true. Because a lot of our buy orders, see how we have what, plus 1.3 from unfulfilled buy orders being like from Spain, but they have only minus 0.4. Like, it looks like about 44% of our consumption is through Spain's production, whereas only 13% of his consumption's from my production. So it's gonna hurt me a lot more. But I don't really see that we have a choice, because we need to conquer Brunei to get the sulfur, and then we need to find some lead, which I think we can get, like, maybe Kutai has some? No, they don't. Of course they don't. Maybe Lanfang? They do have some lead, so we could maybe go to Lanfang, and they're a protectorate of the Heavenly Kingdom, so that's not actually happening. We almost have a plurality of Spaniards here from all the migration. So I think we should just upgrade straight to the better ships, because we can just go straight to steel hulls. I think Spain by now probably already has monitors and ironclads as well, but still. Let's see, are you using... they have frigates and man of wars, never mind. This might actually mean that we can defeat their navy. The problem, of course, being that Britain's navy presumably will also come around. Let's grab the navy defense, because we're going to be fighting naval battles pretty soon, probably. Well, then let's just go for our independence. You're right, 6 failed diplomats, and see if we can get this done. Losing a lot of money now because of all of our expenses. This is unfortunate. This is going to put us at war with Britain and Austria. And I'm pretty sure we just lose, but I don't see any choice. The Netherlands would help us. That's a funny joke. Positivist epoch. We'd love to see that. I don't want anything except for my independence. We're just trying to get independence here. Set you guys to defense. Let's just hope. Cross our fingers and hope that we can fend off all the people that are going to come after us here. Do I want to get the Netherlands to help out? They could be a worthy distraction, but they want one of my very important states, so absolutely not. No shot. So everything's going to go to hell, by the way, once we start this war, because we're going to get our own market, and it's not going to be pretty. It will not be pretty at all. Ooh, I'm afraid, but we are going to have at least like our trade centers, maybe. There's so many goods that we're missing. It's crazy. This is the problem, is that you have like no goods in the Philippines, so we have to pause construction. We're missing like everything ever. We're gonna go bankrupt real fast. So I think that the better path for the Philippines is going to be getting the Dominion status. It's not going to be trying to be independent, because it's just too painful to go independent. You need that Spanish market, you know? So far we're losing the naval battles. That's a great start. Okay. Excellent start. Okay, let's see if we can defend here. I mean, we don't have military shortages, do we? We do seem to have enough ammunition and everything. Winning that one, losing this one. Okay. I'm actually curious what we're trading. If we look at our trade center, are we even like importing? Like, we're importing grain, importing sugar, importing a little bit of lead, but not very much. We can't seem to get a lot of advantage because of our market access. Yeah. And that's likely due to we're being blockaded, I'd assume. Hostile occupation. Okay, so because we're being occupied. Okay, well, I think we're just going to lose this war, though, unfortunately. It gets even worse now that we're even more occupied, by the way. Wonder if I can maybe try to win another naval battle. Let's see if I just get a different admiral. Maybe someone a little more skilled. Tactful. Maybe just naval commander is good. Yeah, let's do this guy. We're winning this one. That's good. Good. Okay, apparently I'm retreating, which means I'm going to lose this battle now. So we're actually going to get fully occupied. Unless... I don't think so. Oh, we actually managed to... Oh no, they actually got a front. Now we're like totally screwed. Yeah, we lose. Well, what happens? We get humiliated. Okay, I guess in theory we can actually continue the campaign. We don't have to give up here, but ooh, then we just gained a bunch of debt cap, or rather lost a bunch of debt cap. Now someone wants to do a coup? Sure. Coup. What could go wrong? What if the SOL is quickly recovering now? This is really funny. Here's where we're better off after having lost that war than we are before it. What does this coup want to do? I guess we'll see. I very rarely let coups happen, so let's see what happens here. I do assume it will cancel our passing of Presidential Republic. Unless we pass it right here. Let's see. Coffee talk. Nope, never lucky. So the admiral that we just hired earlier, he's going to overthrow the government. We're going to get per capita taxation. God, that hurts. And then these guys coup. Okay. Getting the per capita taxation is real bad. It's so painful. I think at this point, though, I'm kind of done with the campaign. I wanted to show off some of the Philippine content, but to be honest with you, the summary of my feelings on the Philippine content is that the content seems pretty good. I like what we have going on here. I think that this content, like wanting to get average SOL on a particular culture up, is really cool and creative, but there's not enough levers in the game to make that happen, so it's kind of just a like pointless mechanic. There's no way for me to target these pops and say, I want to make these guys happier. There's no way for me to do that. So that's why that's not very good. But I do like the ideas behind this. I like the idea of getting a new culture and picking if it's going to be like local language or if it's going to be the other, you know, Hispanophone language. This is stuff that I want to see more of, and I do like it. This one is just the one where you get some modifiers. So you get the primary culture. This is like fine, just some modifiers, like whatever. And ultimately, if you're gonna play as the Philippines, I highly recommend you just try to become a Dominion. Don't really go for your independence, I would say. Because you can get Spain to agree to this if you build up enough of an army. Most of the modifier here is going to be them thinking they can defeat you. So it's perceived ability to defeat Philippines in diplomatic play. Just make a really big army, like balloon up your army. Then, once it's big enough, ask to become a Dominion, and that will get you down the path of resolving these journal entries. If you really have your heart set on becoming independent, you're going to want to build up a massive gold reserve, then do the independence war and succeed, and then you have to find lead and sulfur. That's like the big things, lead and sulfur and coal. So depending on how your game is going, maybe you can go to Siam, who I think has these resources. Nope, never mind. I made that up. Well, they have coal and lead here, so if you want to go up into Chiang Mai, you can go up there. You could go to Vietnam, I think has coal, so you can go to Vietnam. They even have some iron here. Is there lead down here? No. Brunei is the easy pick. This has sulfur, iron,
and, you know, gold. This is a very good pick, but obviously in my case, it's already been conquered. And then another good spot for lead is Korea. But again, yeah, it's unlikely Korea will be easy access by the time you're independent. There's also Japan. Japan has a lot of resources, but again, difficult to conquer that. Just depends on how your game is going. The best source of lead, if you can get it before the Dutch get it, is going to be down here in West Borneo. This is where a good source of lead is that should be accessible to you, but it'll depend on how things are going. But basically, you want to rush down this whole island if possible when you get your independence, because you need those resources. But regardless, I would recommend if you do play Philippines, you just stay Dominion. That's probably going to be best for you. Anyway, with that, we're going to end the campaign here. Let's check in on our companies before we go. This is the Café con Galletas de Galleta Noribaldo, which has 117,000 in profits. That's not bad. Let's look at their statistics. We can see that this is probably the Independence War, is this big dip, and now we're kind of recovering to where we were. We had a peak of 342,000 pounds of profit, which is not bad at all. If we look at their assets, looks like most of it is in Luzon, and then we have a bit in Spain, a bit in Cuba, but most of it's here in Luzon. It's these big coffee plantations in Visayas, for example, where we're using violent treatment to get a lot of coffee out of the people here. That's a lot of money. Very nice. We could use new PMs, but they would just reduce our profits. They'd increase the productivity, though. But yeah, it's that the fact that the throughput only gives outputs is huge for this. In terms of our other company, the Elysia Tatsu Logging, not so profitable. Probably was more profitable before the war. Yeah, they hit 98k at a peak. So that's like okay. And they just have logging camps. That's all they have. Their best asset is going to be probably, yeah, just logging camps in Luzon. And this is one of those companies that I took because it's just kind of nice to have infrastructure from the prosperity bonus, and logging tends to be pretty profitable. It's a nice, you know, building to make some investment. And I believe these guys also are purely, I believe they are purely capitalists. They don't have any aristocrats, unless they do. Unless I'm wrong. No, okay, they do have aristocrats. So in that case, that idea I had in mind that maybe it would be like a good way to generate capitalists. Not so good, because they do make quite a few aristocrats. But still, not bad in my opinion. I see partial aristocrat ownership. This was a good change, by the way, the aristocrat ownership being in companies. I really like that change. Certain companies having capitalists, certain of them having aristocrats. It means that modifiers that give you aristocrat investment aren't always just bad, because companies are really strong, right? This is our government, by the way, before we end things off. As you can see, it's a recent coup from the conservatives against the positivists. We do have the good meme of state atheism plus religious schools. That's a classic. The next step would be, of course, to get theocracy, which in theory is possible, I guess, but no one wants it. In theory, we could get this, maybe. But that'd be really, really funny, really stupid. But yeah, with that, we're going to call the end of the campaign. Made it to 1887. Not bad. Kind of a long campaign, but not super long. Not much happened, and that's mostly on account of playing a minor country. In Victoria 3, when you play a minor country, you're not going to get a lot done. It's just how it is. But with that, I want to say thank you to you, the viewer, and to the channel members. And of course, a big thank you for your time.